It was the year 2015 and a rising star was shining on the horizon. You could only know of him by the trail of destruction he left in his wake. For those who saw him approach, he appeared to be a true monster sent from Kazakhstan. As his popularity rose, even the best middleweight fighters were fearful of facing him, afraid to tarnish their professional records. Still, few thought Gennady Golovkin could truly be a challenge once he reached those leagues featured on television. And, like every good warrior, Golovkin knew he had to prove it with actions, not words. Thus, after all the uproar the topic stirred in the community, an opponent was confirmed on July 26th, David Lemieux. Welcome. In today's video, we'll relive one of the harshest moments in the Canadian's professional career when Gennady Golovkin left him bloodied and unsteady. I advise caution. The images you're about to see are not for the faint of heart. Content. The Canadian was not just another step in Golovkin's ascent to glory. By the time they faced each other, his professional record boasted 34 wins, 31 of them by the hard route of knockout. This history served as proof of the fearsome punching power he was credited with. Even so, Golovkin already held an undisputed reign among middleweights with significant victories. Yet, in retrospect, none of his previous opponents could be considered a true test. So, when the Canadian knockout artist was announced as his opponent, it was seen as the toughest challenge Golovkin had faced at the time. Before the fight, Lemieux appeared very self-assured, unafraid to tell anyone who asked how he would dethrone Golovkin without difficulty. Meanwhile, Golovkin knew it was wise to let his fists speak louder than words and avoided any kind of verbal provocation towards his opponent. Despite his cocky attitude, pre-fight odds showed little confidence in Lemieux. With a 7-1 probability, Golovkin was the overwhelming favorite. However, this would not be the most discouraging prediction we'd see. Beyond that, David would have to prove he had the determination to swim against the tide. After all, anything is possible in the ring. The only certainty surrounding this bout was that it would be a contest etched into the modern chapters of boxing's golden history. Lemieux entered the ring composed without showing any hint of fear at the challenge that would soon confront him from the opposite corner. New York's great Madison Square Garden was ready to witness another historic moment in the sport. With Steve Willis as the third man in the ring, the fight began. The fight round 1. After the sound of the bell, Golovkin demonstrated great skill in taking control of the center of the ring. Listening to the crowd chant his name, he kept Lemieux fighting at his limit. Lemieux showed great audacity in attempting to penetrate Golovkin's guard, but without any success. Still at the center of the ring, both took turns momentarily as the aggressor of the match. In the final minute, Lemieux faced real tension when Golovkin landed a pair of powerful punches that repeatedly sent him crashing against the ropes. Round 2, Golovkin's relentless left hand broke the ice in the second round. In the center of the ring, the fighters exchanged punches to claim control over the pace of the fight. Lemieux's combinations began to take prominence, while Golovkin patiently waited for his chance to strike. When it came, Lemieux had no choice but to start backing up. With blows aimed at his head, Golovkin countered every bit of Lemieux's momentum. During the last 30 seconds, a punishing combination sent the Canadian's back crashing against the ropes and forced him to raise his guard to avoid serious injury. Round 3, Lemieux opened the third round with sharp body combinations. Using his waist movements, he tried to dodge Golovkin's relentless counterattacks. By mid-round, his efforts seemed to wane, as Golovkin pushed him up against the ropes. 2 minutes in, Golovkin landed a solid left uppercut that sent the Canadian's head back. Out of pure survival instinct, Lemieux clung to Golovkin's body. Once Willis separated them, Lemieux tried to keep Golovkin at a distance by working with his left hand. Still, he closed the round by taking a brutal left hook directly to the face. Round 4, Lemieux attempted to start the 4th round aggressively, but in the center of the ring, he clashed with Golovkin's merciless offense. Realizing he couldn't subdue him, the Canadian again tried to clinch. Lemieux's left hand actively sought Golovkin's chin, but he seemed unable to reach it. Meanwhile, Golovkin paved his way to victory with short combinations aimed at Lemieux's head.
Watch your head.
At 1:40 seconds, a deadly hook crashed into the Canadian's face, shocking everyone in the arena. Now against the ropes, Lemieux raised his guard, managing to slip to the side. Nevertheless, he was cornered and this time pummeled by a barrage of punishing blows. The Canadian seemed defenseless, waiting to be saved by the bell. Round 5, Madison Square Garden opened the 5th round, chanting Golovkin's name. Meanwhile, Golovkin pushed the Canadian against the ropes. Lemieux continued his lateral movements, trying to avoid facing his inevitable end. Still, Golovkin stayed close, like a true predator, landing power punches along the way. Entering the last 30 seconds of the round, Lemieux had only the ropes behind him and chose to cover his head, bracing for the blow of a titan. After slipping sideways, he backed into the center of the ring and dropped to one knee, seeming to bow before the monarch who had already subdued him. With both gloves on the canvas, Willis began the safety count to give the Canadian a chance to rise with honor and continue fighting. What appeared to be a surrender amid agony paused at the count of 8 when Lemieux got up. With just 3 more seconds, Lemieux was charged and cornered where the bell was not enough to save him. Fortunately, Willis jumped in between them, allowing Lemieux to walk back to his corner. Round 6, Lemieux hadn't even advanced to the center of the ring when, in the 6th round, he was met with the blows of a ruthless Golovkin. Within mere seconds, he was trapped against the ropes, resorting to clinching as a survival tactic. Occasionally, Lemieux extended his left hand to reaffirm his stance as a fighter. Otherwise, he was little more than a moving punching bag for Golovkin to strike at will. Missing most of his counterattacks, the physical and mental strain was beginning to show on the Canadian. Meanwhile, Golovkin's power punches were becoming ever more precise. Round 7. Golovkin had tired of playing and entered the 7th round to finish the fight. He focused his repeated attacks on Lemieux's head until Willis called for a timeout so the ring doctor could assess the Canadian's injuries.
Hey, time! Come here, David. Come here. Doctor!
Lemieux's nose was like a fountain, blood covering his face. After a brief evaluation, he was allowed to continue. But now, Golovkin had a clear target for his infamous fists. Lemieux's vulnerability had been exposed, and like any beast, the scent of blood only drew Golovkin in further. Round 8. The conclusion of this brutal encounter came in the 8th round. Golovkin left his corner with a more methodical approach. He stayed close to the Canadian, who was now throwing his last punches like desperate, drowning kicks. When Golovkin's left hand started crashing into Lemieux's body, the countdown began. Golovkin cornered Lemieux against the ropes, launching a series of attacks that Willis interrupted. In a desperate attempt to escape sideways, Lemieux staggered and nearly fell to the canvas. It was clear he didn't have the strength to stay on his feet. For this reason, Willis stopped the fight. At 1 minute and 32 seconds, Gennady Golovkin defeated David Lemieux by technical knockout. Closing. If you made it this far, thank you. Remember, there's no better way to support my content than by leaving a like on the video. What was your favorite moment of this fight? What other Gennady Golovkin fight would you like me to feature on the channel? Let me know in the comments.
Gennady Golovkin, a true modern knockout machine.
You had
Carl
to go
Super
down
S.
to place some gloves in their spot.
Many mocking fighters along the way with great humility and respect towards their opponent, as no one let their fists fly.
I caught the last word back there.
They even
But what if
set
you don't
Rado
remember?
in a disgusting online funeral his name. In today's video, we'll enjoy as these boxing champs learn the lesson the hard way. Azura spoiler alert.
Some of them prefer to run to the beach.
Before we continue fighting, let the massacre begin. Gennady Golovkin versus Dominic Wade. With a fight that took place
the
on April
glove?
23rd, 2017 at the Randolph Hall in Inglewood, California, with a payout of $2 million. Did Golovkin go up to the ring?
perfect record.
A record of 35 victories, well above the $500,000 that Dominic Wade received.
To enter the ring with a record of 10.
18 wins and 1 loss. Even so, reason
Kuya.
White believed he was the main character of the night.
Napalainis.
I was long before joining Englishwood Forum. Well, Wade maliciously provoked Golovkin during the pre-fight interviews. But mocking a failure like Golovkin wouldn't do much good. Once both fighters were on the honorable fighting ring, Wade would learn that those who laugh it off end up crying. The fight started and Golovkin's offense was overwhelming. Letting his fist do the talking, Golovkin succeeded from the very first second in defending himself from all of Wade's taunts he had done to him before the fight. Now watch out for the tide. Convinced that he was up to par to counter Golovkin's offense, but it was just an illusion. As the first round drew to a close, the situation
Your action was heating up.
Saantalike for the
Suddenly, a powerful right hook knocks White down for the first time in the competition.
Contented. That could have been enough.
to end it and cut to the chase, but Wade decided to continue with his punishment.
Continue.
Hindi bat rather than the war. A lot of people expect.
Subtitles created by the Amar.org community.
Moving into the second round, Golovkin showed undeniable dominance against Wade. With 2 crushing right hands, he had pulse on all 4s.
Goodbye. Sorry.
It's not him. Yes, he knows he's going to get tagged every time because he's a pressure fighter.
Surprisingly, the burrow appeared.
If not understanding
This
that,
fight just wasn't for him, and he managed to beat Jack Rice's safety count, the referee. It wasn't until he received
Go for a right hook to the head.
shortly
who
after.
farted, who fell to the canvas for the last time?
It's a close. It was on Golovkin's
With
left.
this victory, Golovkin retained the World Boxing Association's middleweight world titles
Yeah, the Internet Users Federation.
of boxing, the Ibero-American Organization of Boxing, and the interim title of the World Boxing Council. What was his 22nd consecutive knockout was also a great lesson for Wave. What's up, friends?
Team versus Martin Moray.
While Golovkin's victory over Wade was clear from the first round, the outcome of his match against Martin Morawiec, it was a back and forth of strong emotions. The weigh-in took place
on February 21st.
2015 at the Rindle South Desk at home in Monte Carlo, Monaco. More ride tips.
Wait a minute.
He entered the final round thinking he was invincible. With a record of 29 victories, most by knockout, Burrow really believed he would be able to defeat Golovkin. And his
He
confidence,
probably posted about it a little.
I could do more in the media, but Mordre wasn't just a buffalo.
Oliver was the King's. He was also...
It was within the ropes. He fought
Subscribe.
aggressively, he was decked out with...
Strong punches from a
That
boxer.
never stepped back. There's a role.
Murray was supposed to become one of
Your
the...
hardest test to fill the air? Golovkin clinching a knockout victory against a fighter who, by the way, had never been knocked out before. he was going to mark a milestone in his professional career. When the fight between these two fighters finally began, all the scenarios seemed to unravel at once. From the first few seconds, Gennady took the center of the ring and started pushing his opponent to the ropes. An unusual scene, as Murray had rarely backed down from confrontation before. But now it was Golovkin who was forcing him to do
But
it.
what you face with Golovkin is also a terrific professional. And that left punch again, which is so smooth but goes all the way in
In the
this.
fourth round, the outlook of the fight changed.
Dramatically, even though Gennady had punished Duran.
When the opponents from the first second,
No.
with 1 minute left to the end.
End of the episode, the pressure in his offense escalated to levels that would lead him to cause 2 knockdowns with brutal attacks.
Body shot.
He is so tough, so honest, and so good. They don't expect him to move here. But Golovkin is a fighter from
And Murray
another
goes down, and Stringer's left misses. Another right to the body, and Murray goes down again.
Well, I commented after the fight
The
that...
pain was like I was about to give birth.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Where
but
are
the
you?
Briton managed to continue the fight despite his agony. Similarly, Golovkin kept pressuring him, winning round after round. At the end of the 7th round, Gennady had a big moment, sending Murray once again to the doorknob.
Product of a straight right punch.
Bye-bye.
Maybe that's where Golovkin wants it.
Also along row 12, Kamal trying to tee off against him. Leverage on those body punches that it hasn't
Good
last.
answer there, Frank Barth.
Everyone thought Marvel's end had come, but he showed great courage by standing up once more. Wasn't it until the 11th round when the fight seemed like a downpour of punches in one direction? What heart? He couldn't endure the level of brutality of the punishment that Gennady was dishing out for a few more seconds. 50 seconds after the assault began, he stopped the fight and awarded the victory to Golovkin by technical knockout.
All kinds of angles he invented, and finally these hits are starting to find their way through, and he's taking it out.
Gennady Golovkin vs. David Lemieux. The next victory of our hero was against a true artist from Canada, David Lemieux, with a record of 34 wins, had knocked out his opponents 31 times. In terms of punching power, this fighter was not inferior to Golovkin. Therefore, when the match was announced, all sports analysts agreed it was a tough test for the champion. David, who was sharing his opinion, took charge of giving mock testimonies about it. As usual from Golovkin's corner, there were no attacks before the fight. Over Madison Square Garden in New York, on October 17, 2015, Gennady let his fists do the talking. Once in the boxing ring, the difference in technical skills was
Awesome. Get ready.
1. Golovkin simply punished his opponent.
His attacks consisted of wild jabs that always caused damage to Lemieux. Subtitles by the Amarator community. His assault on Gennady was the act of a terrible drama. Without ill intentions, he struck his opponent when he was already on his knees. His human quality showed, and he immediately apologized for his action. After that, the fight from the fans' perspective turned into an extended ending. Lemieux got up utterly shattered, only trying to escape Golovkin's ruthless swings out of there. For the 8th,
High pass, fill up, and started
playing with his prey like a predator, which is why referee Steve Willis decided to stop the fight. Gennady Golovkin versus Kyle Brooks.
To meet each
Next
other.
on the list of talkers is Brook. He was one of the most talented fighters in the middleweight category. A former world champion, damn!
According to the International Federation
Soon
of
boxing, and in due time.
the chosen one to defeat.
Right. Nobody speaks Afghan here.
It was supposed to happen on September 10th, 2016.
Odo's Arena in Greenwich,
London. He
Bro.
was truly an incredibly talented fighter, who before facing Gennady, he has a record of 36 wins, achieving 25 of them by the tough route of knockout, without having been defeated. A natural welterweight, who took a desperate fight to challenge Gennady, jumping 2 categories at once. His bravery was appreciated by Golovkin, who agreed to fight him.
Against the
Thrall weren't the odds in Brute's favor, but beyond the predictions, he truly believed in his success. Before the fight, he made sure to tell everyone he would tear Gennady to pieces. Once in the ring, his threats were sent out of this world by Golovkin's very fists. The result of the fight was even sadder than if Golovkin had simply been knocked out by his opponent. Right from the first round, Gennady managed to shock Brook several times with his punches.
Subtitles by the Amarador community. A heavyweight trophy. A heavyweight trophy. They are already out in the sun. Many heavy punches. He
But
loved
the Brits
it.
seemed to recover quickly. Throughout the fight, both fighters had their moments.
successful.
Hi.
Who are you
He
taking?
was leading and putting on pressure while Brook was following closely. About half of the Gennady up the pressure of his offense by throwing more and more punches.
It's Holwood's tribute. Looking forward to another round like the second one. Honorably founded in history now.
During the break between the 4th and 5th round, Brook's corner notices a big bruise growing on their fighter's face. So apparently Golovkin noticed that weak spot in his opponent, and when the round started, he worked actively, landing devastating punches there.
It made it clear that the
It
end
was close, but no one expected that could create a real drama scenario, pushing the Briton into a corner to throw in the towel.
Happy is the one who, this is a good combination. So many times in the past, this man goes up, then he goes to the end, and Brook is in transit. Brook is in a lot of trouble. Oh, these are heavy punches too. Does he say it or not?
After the fight, it was confirmed that Hell's Corner concern was their lifeline. His fighter suffered a dangerous fracture around the eye during the fight, and if his team hadn't stopped the match, the outcome could have been even worse.
Sadder than a loss by forfeit. Broke kick.
He could have lost his vision. Even so, that fracture
pursued the Briton throughout his career,
preventing him from giving his
the
best of himself. Later on, he would publicly admit his regret for having faced Gennady. Gennady Golovkin vs. Curtis Stevens. And the winner of the category got what he deserved. It can't be anyone other than Curtis Stevens. This fighter holds the title of being the most hated by Golovkin's fans. In fact, Gennady has many reasons not to like Stevens. For example, the numbers.
in all those insults that the American has thrown at him,
But Stevens did not stop at just verbal insults.
organized a show
No
for
one else. Confirmation.
Online, it might not have been appreciated in the way that,
What was waiting for him?
which is why on November 2nd, 2013, in the ring at Madison Square Garden, Golovkin decided it was time to punish him. In hindsight, credit must be given to Stevens, who was truly determined to secure the victory that night. At the start of the fight, he was active and very involved. But already in the second round, he feared for his life as he was knocked down by Golovkin with a powerful left hook. Ironically, his expression after falling to the canvas was the source of many jokes on the internet after the fight. Once on his feet, the fight continued. Steven managed to reach the 8th zone,
round with Golovkin,
putting more and more pressure on him. Every now and then, it rained on the flyers which his body was not impervious to.
They claim.
It's like we were hit, but...
After looking at the deplorable situation his loser found himself in, Stevens' team decided they wouldn't let their fighter go out for the 9th round. After so much taunting, Gennady secured an easy win. If you've made it this far, I appreciate it. Remember, the best way to support my content is by leaving a like on the video. Which as the boxer punished by Golovkin do you think should be in part 2 of this video? Let me know in the comments.
In the year 2015, a rising star emerged on the American horizon, a true monster from the vast steppes of Kazakhstan. Leaving a trail of destruction in his wake, he terrified all middleweight contenders around him. But Gennady Golovkin still had yet to make a name for himself in the broader boxing community in his first pay-per-view fight. Many predicted how challenging his ascent to the ring would be, but after the 26th of July, an opponent willing to face him finally emerged. David Lemieux from Golden Boy Promotions. Lemieux was not just another stepping stone. By the time he faced Golovkin, the Canadian maintained an impressive record of 34 victories, with 31 of them coming by painful knockout. His track record was the best evidence of his fearless punching power, and all the pieces were falling into place. On the other hand, Golovkin had established his undisputed reign in the middleweight division, defeating heavy hitters like Gabriel Rosado, Curtis Stevens, and others. But when the Canadian knockout artist joined his ranks, analysts' concerns were real. This fight would be the toughest test for Golovkin at that time. Would he be able to pass it successfully? Welcome. In today's video, I invite you on a journey to the past to witness up close the bout between Gennady Golovkin and David Lemieux. Get comfortable, because the adventure begins right now. Full of confidence, Lemieux took on an egocentric stance before the fight. He assured everyone that he would effortlessly dethrone Golovkin. Like a true gentleman, Gennady refused to engage in provocations. The Kazakhstani titan abstained from any kind of vocal trash talk, allowing his fists to do the job of proving his worth within the discipline. Despite Lemieux's smear campaign against Golovkin, he failed to become the favorite heading into the match. With odds of 7-1, Gennady seemed the clear winner for the general opinion, but not even these predictions could help anticipate the brutality that would unfold in the ring. David Lemieux never saw what happened on that fateful night for his professional career coming. The stage was set, the fighters were ready. With thousands watching around the world, two titans prepared for a spectacle that would seep into the annals of boxing history. On October 17, 2015, the historic Madison Square Garden trembled with anticipation as the fighters entered the ring. The Canadian faced the challenge without showing a single sign of fear, but the moment Gennady's name was heard, a flash of concern seemed to reflect on Lemieux's face. Golovkin marched to the ring like a man with only one thing to do: dig a grave to bury his next victim. Amidst the roar of the crowd, Michael Buffer announced the fighters' names once more. Thus the bell rang, signaling the start of the fight. First round. Both fighters measured their opponent's guard. Lemieux showed more boldness, pushing Golovkin back a couple of steps. However, Gennady was more cunning. He allowed David the freedom to showcase his fighting style early in the bout, to study him and devise a solid strategy. By the end of the round, Golovkin began to contain Lemieux's offense. Making him retreat until he collided with the ropes a couple of times, the Kazakhstani titan was ready to switch to attack mode. Second round, Golovkin's left hand broke the ice. Lemieux continued to try to assert himself, but the counterattack stopped his impulses. Gennady's good combinations began to excite the audience and hurt David. During the last 30 seconds of the episode, Golovkin showed total dominance over Lemieux. Third round, Lemieux tried to set the pace of the fight from the start, but it was quickly taken from him. Gennady's firm stance in the center of the ring made it difficult for his strategy of trapping him against the ropes to work. Lemieux entered and exited, as if fearing to stay for close exchanges. And how not? Golovkin's attacks were aimed directly at his face and occasionally seemed to land unimpeded. Fourth round, Golovkin started dominating the round. His attacks forced Lemieux to move around the ring. With good combinations, David sought to penetrate Gennady's guard. Unfortunately, he did not execute them with the necessary force to break his walls.
Watch your heads, watch your heads.
Golovkin began to emulate a predator, stalking his prey. He put Lemieux in trouble by momentarily trapping him against the ropes and delivering combinations with the potential to knock him out at any moment. The Canadian idol seemed to start running out of ammunition to attack the Kazakhstani titan, and that was a big problem. Fifth round, Golovkin was the leader of the ring's center, and Lemieux orbited around him. Gennady's fists began to be as strong as to knock him out of orbit. David tried to contain Golovkin's offense with body shots, but to no avail. The last 30 seconds of the episode turned into a real hell for the Canadian idol. Retreating until he found himself against the ropes, it was the rebound that left him on a silver platter to be devoured by the Kazakhstani titan. A brief but decisive combination was enough for him to kneel before his master. Lemieux seemed to have lost the sense of time and space, but he managed to recover before the safety count ended. As the fight resumed, Gennady quickly cornered him against a corner. With only 5 seconds remaining, David learned the meaning of the phrase, "saved by the bell." Sixth round, Golovkin's offensive became incredibly more violent, contrasting with Lemieux's cautious movements around the ring. Gennady had really started to punish David, making him move tirelessly until he was against the ropes. A right punch made him crash. Lemieux seemed like paper. His counterattacks were executed in survival mode, but it was too early in the contest for that. During the last minute of the round, Lemieux tried to take control of his destiny, but it was already sealed. Seventh round, Gennady was getting tired of playing, and his combinations were the clear sign of it. Lemieux was clearly hurt. After the minute mark of the round, the referee called for a ring doctor review due to his alarming nosebleed.
Time! Come here, David. Come here. Doctor!
After getting the green light to continue, David knew he had to go all in. If he kept taking punches, his wound could worsen and make him retire from the fight. But by seeking the attack, he unconsciously put himself in the line of fire for Gennady to also find the opportunity to take him out of the fight. During the last minute, Golovkin actively sought to corner the Canadian idol against the ropes. His movements bought him some time, but his tragic end was already around the corner. Eighth round, Lemieux attacked to try to keep Golovkin at bay. Diminishing his momentum, Gennady tactically sought the best opportunity to let go of his fists. Strategically advancing, he narrowed the battlefield for David until he found himself against the ropes. He didn't want to intimidate him, he was ready to trap him in a deadly trap. By the time Golovkin's combinations started raining down, Lemieux was already lost. Against the ropes, he made the greatest effort possible to prevent Golovkin's tenacious blows from hitting his body. Unable to do so, and showing no signs of being able to defend himself, it was not the bell that would save him now. The referee noticed that Lemieux was only still standing out of inertia and decided to stop the fight. It seems that it was Gennady who managed to defeat his opponent without any effort. There is no doubt that the outcome of this encounter will represent a lesson in humility for David Lemieux and all those who allow themselves to learn from others' experiences. The Kazakhstani titan allowed his fists to have the last word and left his opponent with no right to reply. With his face almost intact and still plenty of energy to give, Gennady Golovkin was celebrated in the ring, while the conceited Lemieux had to be quickly attended to evaluate his wound before the loss of blood became significant. If you've made it this far, I thank you. Did you enjoy our journey into the past? Remember that there's no better way to support my content than by leaving your like on the video. What other Gennady Golovkin fight do you think should be on the channel and why? Did David Lemieux really have any chance of beating the Kazakhstani titan? I'll read you in the comments.
It was 2017 and Gennady Golovkin was positioning himself as one of the strongest contenders worldwide. Remaining undefeated since his debut, Gennady managed to emulate the energy of the toughest fighters of all time. As a result, the list of potential opponents was long. Any brave warrior longed for the opportunity to be the one to give Golovkin his first harsh reality check, even if it meant risking being added to his already extensive list of casualties. Suddenly, a name captured the attention of the sports fans: Daniel Jacobs. Jacobs was announced as the next big challenge in Gennady's rise to glory. What transpired in the ring was unprecedented. Welcome. In today's video, you will witness one of the most brutal moments in the professional careers of both Golovkin and Jacobs. Viewer discretion is advised, as the images you are about to see may be disturbing. Content: Gennady Golovkin debuted on May 6, 2006, when he faced Gabor Balog in the ring of the Burgwächter Castle in Dusseldorf. There, he needed only 1 minute and 28 seconds to secure a clean knockout victory. Since then, he became a kind of Grim Reaper in boxing. His list of contenders turned one by one into his list of casualties. Unfortunate souls claimed by the force of his fists, breaking them down to their very spirits with an offense that, over the years, no one seemed to decipher, let alone neutralize. For his part, Jacobs debuted on December 8, 2007, defeating Jose Jesus Hurtado by technical knockout in the first round of a 4-round fight. His outcome seemed as positive as Gennady's until 2010, when, on July 31st, Dmitry Pirog defeated him by technical knockout due to injury at 57 seconds of the 5th round.
But I don't think it was intentional, and I don't think it was...
Oh, down goes Jacobs on a perfect right hand!
This first setback would be a trial by fire for Jacobs, who recovered to continue adding victories to his professional record. This quality led him to face, as one of the greatest challenges, the prodigy from Karaganda, Kazakhstan. The fight on March 18, 2017, in the legendary ring of Madison Square Garden, both fighters faced their destiny. Golovkin entered the fight as the #1 in the world middleweight rankings, but he was closely followed by Jacobs, who was ranked #2. Therefore, it was no surprise when it was announced that the World Boxing Association, WBA, International Boxing Federation, IBF, World Boxing Council, WBC, and International Boxing Organization, IBO, middleweight world titles would be on the line. Judges Steve Weisfeld, Max DeLuca, and Don Trella were tasked with naming a worthy representative of these organizations, assuming the power of their fists didn't settle at first. With Charlie Fitch as the third man in the ring, the fight began. Round 1. From the first moment, Gennady appeared dominant. He took control of the center of the ring and forced Jacobs to fight at the edge of the ropes. Jacobs was not exactly a passive fighter, extending his left hand to test Golovkin's guard. Once both fighters felt confident enough, the first attacks began to unfold. However, this round was more of a feeling out round for both.
Extra where you've got to be very wary of what you're dealing with.
Oh, absolutely, but look, we are in New York.
Round 2. Gennady came out of his corner determined to corner Jacobs, and he succeeded. He backed him up until his back hit the ropes, and when Jacobs had no other choice, he was forced to engage in a clinch. Golovkin was already throwing bombs, while Jacobs focused on avoiding these blows landing on his body. Occasionally extending his left, Jacobs also seemed to have a plan. In the last minute of the round, he abandoned his passive stance, and his good footwork in lateral movements kept him active.
Dictated by Golovkin.
Round 3, Gennady repeated the formula that had made him the aggressor in the previous 2 rounds, but Jacobs seemed to know it well enough. Before opting for a clinch, he tried his luck, attempting to neutralize it with his left hand. Golovkin remained the primary aggressor, but there was another bad guy waking up in the ring. It seemed increasingly unlikely that a simple knockout victory before the halfway point of the fight was a probable scenario.
Good body shot there by Golovkin as he gets in range.
Round 4. Jacobs seemed to be getting comfortable fighting at the edge of the ropes when, in an instant, he hit the canvas. A lethal right hand from Gennady was enough to send him crashing into the ropes and lying on the floor for a few moments.
And these discussions. Good right hand, and down goes Jacobs. Golovkin puts Jacobs down.
Jacobs got up at the count of 3 but took the mandatory 8 count from Fitch. When he returned to the fight, Gennady's left hand paired with that tenacious right, attempting to break him. Down once again. But Jacobs showed great strength, keeping his guard up and surviving to tell the tale of another round.
Fight, he knows that he expected to get hurt. Maybe not drop, but he expected to get hurt.
Golovkin goes to the body.
Round 5. Jacobs came out of his corner with great caution. Gennady quickly drove him against the ropes and attacked without showing an ounce of mercy. For his safety, Jacobs had no choice but to clinch. Throughout the round, Jacobs tried to launch his own attacks, but Golovkin's aggressive fighting style left little room for another protagonist. Gennady's strength made him appear like an impenetrable fortress against his opponent's punches.
Has he taken a round yet, Chris?
I gave him the 3rd round. It was close, but 39-36 in favor.
Round 6, Jacobs attempted to stay in the center of the ring at the start of the 6th round. However, Gennady advanced like an avalanche, forcing him to retreat. Golovkin's left hand sought to connect with Jacobs' chin at every opportunity, while Jacobs struggled to keep him at a distance and avoid facing him directly.
Does that early on here in round number 6 as Golovkin starts to stalk and walk.
The first half of the scheduled rounds had definitely not tipped the scales in Jacobs' favor. He needed to change his projection in the eyes of the judges if he wanted even a chance of defeating the Golovkin machine in a decision.
That's normally the case. You don't do it to be effective. You do it just to buy some time.
Round 7. Jacobs tried to steal the rhythm of the fight from Gennady just before being pushed to his limit once again. Now, he seemed fearful of how close Golovkin was getting, and it was no wonder when within reach, Jacobs had to withstand brief but powerful combinations that hit his body like guided missiles.
And encouragement as well, even saying good job, and that was a good round 6 for Daniel.
Round 8. Any attempt by Jacobs to regain control of the fight was quickly neutralized by Gennady's violent offense. His only chance lay in Golovkin lowering the intensity of his attacks at some point, but Golovkin seemed like a train that didn't know how to stop its march toward victory. Jacobs landed some good body shots during the last minute of the round, but he needed more flashes of offensive brilliance if he wanted to be a real threat to Gennady.
Seen Golovkin fight, Jacobs fight.
Round 9. Jacobs started by throwing punches, but Gennady quickly responded with his own. As had been the case since the first round, Golovkin had no trouble pushing him to the limit, cornering him at times. From his defensive position, Jacobs didn't seem to know how to counterattack. Thus, sticking to his guard was his safe play. During the final seconds, in the center of the ring, one of the most exciting exchanges of the fight took place, so far.
Like he did right there.
Little giddy up at the step there from Golovkin as he...
Round 10, Jacobs seemed more interested in close-range exchanges. With the judge's decision approaching, he knew he had to bring out the heavy artillery to add the final points to his scorecard. Anyone who thought Golovkin would run out of energy in the final stretch was wrong. Gennady showed great stamina, never lowering his guard or the intensity of his offense. Eventually, this led Jacobs to be pinned against the ropes once again.
And Golovkin, another thing he does to resemble the great Chavez is...
Round 11. Gennady wasn't going to leave any loose ends. He cornered Jacobs, punished him with body combinations, and didn't give him a second to catch his breath. Jacobs tried to keep up, but it was too late. He was far behind and could only follow in Gennady's wake. The punches nearly continued after the bell.
Exchange right there. Jacobs took that, and that took well.
Big end to
Round 12. The final round was worthy of the fighters who starred in it. Tenacious punches flew back and forth from one corner to another, crashes against the ropes, pressure, and the drive of two true warriors fighting for victory. In the last minute of the fight, Gennady sought to reaffirm his triumph. But this time, Jacobs knew it was all or nothing, and he refused to give up the center of the ring. After the final bell, Jacobs collapsed against the ropes near his corner. The exhaustion was real, though he had worked hard throughout the fight to disguise it.
With a monster like Golovkin.
The Miracle Man drops to his knees after 12 hard rounds.
Judges' decision moments of tension filled the air as the announcer took the center of the ring to reveal the results according to the judges' scorecards. Suddenly, the tension was broken. A new champion was crowned. Gennady Golovkin defeated Daniel Jacobs by unanimous decision in the 12th round. Once again, Madison Square Garden was the place where dreams of glory came true. Conclusion: if you've made it this far, remember that the best way to support my content is by leaving a like on the video. Do you think Daniel Jacobs deserved this victory, or did the judges rightfully rule in favor of reason? I'll be reading your thoughts in the comments.